Hi, welcome back to Agent Insider. I'm your host, Andy Jewell. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I have a guest with me, Becky. Becky, thank you for being here today and for taking some time to go through an exciting new venture that you're opening up.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today and tell you what I've been working on.
Yeah, so let's kind of jump into it a little bit. You've been on our show before talking about insurance and other things. And today we're taking like a hard left out of insurance and into a coffee shop.
Yes. And really for me, that's a huge hard left in my life too. But it's been so much fun. We've learned a lot and I'm very, very excited. So
yeah, and we're actually in the coffee shop right now.
Yeah.
Or the bones of the coffee shop. It's
in progress.
Yeah, not completely done, but it's getting close. It's really close to being completed. And it's been a real journey to get here. So tell me, because it's been like people joke, and I've been working with you on the coffee shop too, but people were like, how long till the coffee shop? And we're like, next month for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So tell me the journey a little bit. What's unique about this coffee shop? Because this isn't just about trying to put Starbucks out of business.
Yeah, absolutely not.
We're not putting Starbucks out of business.
That will not happen.
Yeah.
So would you want to back up to?
Let's rewind.
Like all the way?
Sure. I mean, how far back you want to go?
Yeah. So, I mean, our dream when we were kids,
we say kids, but like a lot of people would say we weren't kids.
19 years old,
Yeah.
19 years old, we talked about, wouldn't it be great to have a coffee shop, something where young people could just come and hang out and a space for them that they could spend some time together and study the Bible and talk about God and have a place that's just for them.
Well, and just hang out too, right? Like it's a lot of times kids will think about like, oh, we're going to go study something. We're going to go to a youth group, which is great. But there's also kids that are just like, I want to just go hang out someplace and there's no place to hang out.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially in our area, they all, Friday night, Saturday night, they're out in the Dairy Queen parking lot. So there's really no space for them right now to do that.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like there's a bowling alley. There's not a lot to do though, as far as kids hanging out. And a lot of places closed. Most of the coffee shops, most of the things in our county shut down by 8 o'clock for sure. Which I saw a meme once, and it has this tired looking bird, like kind of laying on the perch, almost kind of like, and then this other like hyper bird, like chirping at it. And it says, me with my teenagers at 11 o'clock at night, which is totally what happens, right? Kids come awake and come alive after 10 p.m. It's just the way they're wired for the most part. Obviously there's exceptions. So it's a dream from college for you and for me as an idea of this would be awesome to have a place for kids, young adults, but more like middle school, high school to hang out.
Right. Yeah. Someplace that really they can just that they can feel as their own.
Right. So now, so you think about that for a long time and you do nothing with it. It just kind of sits in the back of your head.
It's just life happens and things get busy and for a lot of years we didn't have the opportunity until recently. So
what happened recently?
Yeah. So when it was 2020, when things slowed down, they shut down, and we found ourselves with a vacancy that
vacancy in one of the buildings.
Right. The business there had gone under, and we thought, you know what, we could try to find somebody. There really wasn't a lot of people looking for space at that point in time either. And we thought, you know what, we could take this space and do something really cool with it. And that's when the wheels started turning and things just came together. And we thought, you know what, we're just going to step out in faith and give this to God and see what He's going to do. And man, it's been an adventure since that moment.
Yeah, it is. I remember as we thought about that, I was like, this is going to be easy, right? Like we drew it up and it was figured out how the layout was going to flow in the space. And we're like, those will be easy peasy. Go down to the city, like just get our building permit. We'll hire some people. We'll do some work ourselves. 6 months from now, we'll be open. And it didn't quite work that way.
No, it did not. Yeah, we had a lot of hiccups, a lot of trouble finding labor and different things that we needed.
Well, in the process, the permitting process, it changes over the years. It had been probably almost 10 years, 5-7 years from the last project we had done. And it's like, wow, like there's a lot more involved is just doing the permitting. And I'm sure some people watching the video are like, well, duh, you're doing a coffee shop versus doing an office space. And
and that's something we'd done a commercial space with office space, but we'd never done anything with food related. So that's a huge learning curve. But it's been so fun just getting to know that process. And
well, that's a polite way to put it. It's been interesting. It's been eye-opening, learning the process of trying to wade through it all. It's definitely been challenging, but and it's taken a lot longer, right? Because you have people lined up, and then you get delays of trying to get all of your ducks in a row with the city and getting permits, and then by the time you get there, it's like, oh, these contractors have moved on to other projects, and now you're starting over. So trying to find somebody to work with us was difficult. And we spent a lot of time spinning our wheels. And thankfully we had Chuck from, we know through church, Handy Homes came along and partnered with us to help us really get it moving.
Yes. We were really, at that point, we were pretty stuck, and Chuck came along and just moved the whole project forward. Thank God for Chuck. It's been so wonderful having him just do so much. He basically has brought it to this point, and it's almost there. We're so close. Yeah.
Well, and that's why we kind of waited to do this, because I've been thinking about doing a podcast and just kind of talking about it. Agent Insider, the podcast that we do, looks at businesses often from an insurance perspective. And I'll talk a little bit about the insurance as it comes to this project. But we want to see behind the scenes in businesses as well. And so that's why I think this is really cool. But we would have been a train wreck if we tried to go behind the scenes on this earlier, because there was still so many things that we were feeling out. And now we're to the point where we're putting on finishes touches of handrails and occupancy signs and, last minute refrigerators and freezers and all of that stuff. So I think we're getting to the point now where we can actually talk more intelligently about it. So it's kind of fun to dive behind it, because as we're talking about it, typically I'd just be interviewing someone, and now I can actually participate more in the conversation as we're talking through it.
Well, you've seen it from the beginning, so.
Yeah, and it's been a wild adventure when you look at it. The equipment, that's something is also different from insurance, right? Insurance is very intensive for labor intense. We have equipment, but it's office equipment, right? Computers, desks. You're not dealing with refrigeration, freezers, and espresso machines, and all of the extra equipment that you need. The soda machines that, not soda pop machines, but the cookers and the warmers, the turbo chefs that you're doing that to use, developing on a limited basis, because we don't want to be a restaurant. Right. So we didn't want to go into that full commercial cooking kitchen, but rather to be a warming kitchen with coffee. And so that's a challenge, though, because we're also trying to create opportunities for kids to have, good, healthy snacks, but also snacks that they want to eat, because we want them to hang out for a long time here. Right. So or give them the opportunity to be able to hang out for a long time here. So that's been an adventure of learning through all of the equipment and finding, and my goodness, again, anybody who owns a restaurant would be like, well, duh, but it's like, there's a lot of options and they're all expensive.
There's probably a lot of people are like, well,
but it's all
club.
expensive. And I think that's the thing that, as consumers sometimes, which is just kind of a different take. When you go into a restaurant or you go into a coffee shop, you see, hey, these beans, this cup of coffee costs, probably 50 cents, $1 to make, depending on what type of coffee you get, right? And how many things get added into it. And so you look at the price and you go, wow, this is nuts. Like, it's a ripoff. But you forget about all of the equipment behind the scenes. That's, tens of thousands of dollars for just a basic setup, right? That's the part that I think I was a little surprised at when we first started this process, is realizing the equipment cost is significant. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I don't think everybody realizes when you're going in as a consumer.
Yeah. And everything that the other big surprise for us was when we priced things initially in 2020.
Yeah.
Since that time,
prices changed a little bit.
Prices have gone up a wee bit. So yeah, it has made a huge difference there in just our budget to get the doors open.
Right.
But God knows.
Which is something I think everybody feels, no matter what industry you're in, is that the pricing of things, like from our initial budget to where we are now to get the doors open, we're probably almost 3 times what the cost was originally estimated at. Now, obviously, there's always a little bit of overage anyways when you first do the estimates, but it's not 3 times.
Right. And I tried, when we priced things out, we tried to put that, 30% buffer in there originally, because we knew like our projects do always tend to go over. So we were expecting that. So
a quick side note on that, just to deviate a little bit back to insurance, as we're on an insurance podcast. That's something that I believe a lot of business owners in general don't always think about. Like, they think about what it cost them to do this 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But the cost to do it today is going to be significantly more than what it cost you to do it 10 years ago. And that inflation impact is huge. So if you have a claim and you're not thinking, you got to think about how much coverage you actually need, not how much coverage you pay for what you paid, but for what it's going to cost to replace. And that's vastly different than what you're going to think. Because in 4 years, our costs tripled. And I think that's something that people often don't realize, is that those costs are always going up, and it's not going to stop. It might slow down. Hopefully it slows down, but inflation has never really stopped. There's been short periods of time where there's been little inflation or deflation, but it's been very short and short-lived, and inflation marches on.
Yeah, you even see that with used cars, how they're holding their value a lot more than they used to, because inflation is affecting that.
Right. So you buy a car and then 5 years later, the car's worth what you paid for it. You're like, why is that? Right. So inflation, it's not, that's a different story. We won't delve down the inflation
That's
road.
A different rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a different rabbit hole. So 508 is the name of the business.
Yes.
Or the name of the, which actually it's a nonprofit, right?
Yes, absolutely. The whole thing is nonprofit. Any excess will also be donated back to the community. We're going to take every quarter, maybe take a different local charity and give any excess to
which
them.
Is kind of cool. Like, I think it's awesome to support charities, and maybe this will change over time, right? That may not always be a local charity, but I think it's cool to be involved overseas and be like, hey, we're helping an orphanage over here, or we're helping dig a well over here, which is, all those things are great. And I think important, and definitely don't want to downplay that at all. But I also think it's pretty cool to have the concept, the idea that, hey, we can actually help our community. So when we have more than what we need to operate, because the idea is to just operate it at at a net zero, right? Like we just want to cover the cost of, we're going to have some employees because we need to make sure that we have regular hours and we're open all the time for kids to be here, provide a safe place for them. We're obviously overhead of lights and heat, and then you're going to have overhead of the coffee and food. So you have product. Outside of that, though, like there's all the profits are either going back into resources for the community here in 508 because we want to be able to have board games. We have ping pong tables in the back. We're going to have tutors that are going to be part of it here. And we should dive into more of all those things.
Yeah.
But then if there's excess on top of that, we want to help other things in the community that are reaching out to the hurting or the broken in our communities. So might be other programs that are reaching kids, or Young Life be the one, things like that, or it might be
the food bank.
There's
lots of great
shelters and
charities.
All kinds of things that are here locally serving our communities that we can help partner with. That if we're blessed and we have more than we need to run 508, we want to bless other people in our community to continue building a stronger community. Because I think that's one of the beauties of what we're doing here is it's going to open up opportunities to invest in kids, youth, middle school, high school kids for now, which makes a difference in their lives immediately, but also makes a difference in our community in the long run. Harken back to steal from one of my favorite movies, It's a Wonderful Life. There's a scene in this movie, you laugh because make my kids watch this every year at Christmas time.
They don't mind though. They like it now. So.
They do. They've at least resigned themselves to it. And you know what I love is, so as our kids are getting older, our daughters are getting married, and our oldest got married, and we watched it with her husband, Cole, and he liked it. And then
was he
no,
just being polite?
No,
did he actually like it?
No, he liked it. He was excited to watch it again. And then our next daughter, TJ, Melody and TJ, he actually liked it too. And so I'm building the fan base of It's a Wonderful Life. And it doesn't need help. It's a great movie all on its own, but we're doing our best to continue on
spread the word about what a great movie it is.
It's a great movie. So you haven't seen it, watch it. But in the movie, there's a scene where it's Mr. Potter is wanting to shut down the building and loans, and George Bailey, he says he's like, you're all businessmen. If they have a roof over their head and pride in their home, he's like, doesn't that make them better citizens? Doesn't that make them better, a better population and a better city? And I think that's when we look at being able to give resources to young people, it builds our community to be a better community. It builds our community to be a stronger community that is important, right? Like that was part of it. It's like we see depression and suicide and things that are on the rise, and kids are a huge victim of how society has changed. They've isolated people, right? Like social media, on a small rant, maybe I'll get some hate on this in the comments, but on a small rant, like social media, we think it connects us, but it actually can create little silos because we're not actually connecting to people. We're sending them messages and memes, and in some ways there is some connection there. But we're actually very lonely still, and we only see filtered views of everybody else's lives. We see the highlight reel of everyone else's lives, and we're not having real communication and real connection with them.
Yeah, well, we're more lonely now than we were 10 years ago as a nation, right? Like people are just getting more and more lonely.
Right.
So definitely it's not helping that.
The coffee shops in general, this is kind of an interesting thing, but you see the coffee shops were starting to spring up at the end of the Dark Ages, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
that's interesting. Yeah.
And they became the meeting place where people got together and they shared ideas. They drank caffeine and became invigorated.
Instead of the pub where
right. Instead of
they
going
were
to the
trying not
pub,
to think.
yeah, going to the pub and drowning your sorrows and turning your brain off, you go to the coffee shop and you get it invigorated and energy
share
feeds.
New ideas.
Yeah. And energy feeds on energy. So I'm excited because I think that's what we're creating here is not just a place to serve a cup of coffee, because there's lots of coffee shops out there. You're like going through the drive-through, you get a coffee, whatever, right? But if you want to come get a coffee, a Lotus, a boba tea, right, and sit down and play a game, a board game or a card game or ping pong with friends, with mentors, with people who care about you, building relationship, building community, man, like I think I get excited again talking about it.
It is super exciting because it's just such a great way to be able to tell our youth they matter. You know, that
right.
It's just been so long. Like young people are so just there's this like no expectations put on them. Like they're told that they really are too young to do stuff. They can't do things. You know, they should act like children until they're 25. You know, like where are the people that will raise these kids up and say, no, you are important. You could do a lot of great things. You don't have to wait till you're 30 to do these things. You know, I think part of it is kids just feel like their lives are not making a difference and they don't see a future. Like, I think that's a lot of the hopelessness you see in that generation is they just, you know, they feel like things stink right now and they don't see them changing in the near future. And that's where I want to come in and pour into these kids and say, no, you guys are powerful. You have a huge future. You have a good future. And you have people that really care about you and love you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very powerful message for guys and girls. They both need it. Yeah,
I agree. I think everybody needs to hear that. And the more that we can do that, right, to be able to provide opportunities for kids. And I'll have Cole put up some pictures here in our podcast, because this space, like, you can't see it all in the limited podcast view. And
yeah, we've got kind of construction still going on.
Yeah, we saw some construction going on, but the decorating that you and your friend Nicole have done, it's like, it's amazing. Like I walk into a space and I was like, well, we could get some card tables and we'll get a coffee brew and a nice chest with soda pop in it. And, you guys, mine would look like, I don't know, like it would look terrible. Like maybe we put graffiti on the walls to cover it up. But what you guys have done here is like, it's, you feel like you're in a classy, I wouldn't say from the 20s, but it's almost like a 20s modern vibe.
Yeah. So we tried really hard. It is an old building. It was built in
1924. Yeah.
Yeah. So we really, there was a lot of really good bones and some very old features that we tried our best to keep everything that we could. You can't see in the shop, but there's a beautiful tin ceiling that was original. The building it used to be a J.C. Penney's. So it had a lot of molding and just beautiful architecture. So we tried to save as much as we could. And then we also added in some of those elements back where we could in the new design to try to stay true to that. And it turned out really, really amazing.
It's beautiful. Like it really is. I just realized though, as you were talking, it was built in 1924, and I said like it's got like a 20s vibe, but more modern. And I realized, like in 5 years from now, people are like, a 20s vibe. You mean from like 10 years ago?
Right.
Like, my goodness, like that is like 100 years ago now.
Which is funny because a friend of mine that lives in Europe, she was like, you're talking about old buildings in your area, like 100 years old is old. Well, that's still new for them.
Right.
Like, that's not old.
She's like, oh, that's modern. That's from the 1920s.
Right. But in our area, that's as old as you get. They were the original buildings, and we're,
late
the West.
1800s,
So,
early 1900s is about as old as you have on the West Coast.
yeah,
Or
in our
Northwest
area.
Washington. Yeah. There's places that you get some older buildings, but even anywhere in the United States, the oldest building you're getting is 200-300 years old. And, versus you can get buildings that are thousands of years old in Europe. So it is different, but I just was like, it's like, wait a minute, the 20s, like we're in the 20s.
Yeah. That's kind of wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk more about like what the experience is for kids coming in.
Yeah. So, and I forgot to tell you, there was, I had a pastor call me yesterday. He was really, really excited about the tutoring aspect because he said he's Hispanic and he's got a big heart for Hispanic teens that need tutoring with like their different subjects in English as a second language. And he was really, really, when he heard that we were interested in offering that, he really wants to partner with us too.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, to give you his information, but.
So we might be able to get even more. We already had 2 tutors lined up, so this might be 3. So tell me, like, I'm a middle school, high school kid. I'm coming in. What's the experience that I should expect coming into 508?
Yeah, so I would love it. I would love to just be a place for kids, any kids, middle school, high school that just want to come after school and hang out for a while, especially for those kids that like maybe their home life isn't, a place that feels safe for them. I'd love this to be their safe place, with people that they feel care about them. But just a place where you can kind of come, grab a drink, grab some food. I definitely want to fill kids up, for hopefully not too much money, and, give them a place to just, throw their bag and play some games or maybe do some homework. And have them know that this is for them, that they don't have to like feel worried about, loitering or that they have to buy something every half hour or something, that they can just, that this was built for them. It is their space. So, and then also like interact with people and not, maybe for kids that have to maybe go home to an empty house, this would be an alternative to that where they can be around people, and they can, also hear the good news about Jesus.
Yeah. So I want to dive into that a little bit more, but first the experience of being here, right? That we're going to have tutors that are going to volunteer maybe once or twice a week, that you'll have tutors for different subjects. So that way, if you're struggling in math or you're struggling in English or you're struggling in general, maybe with this guy who's bilingual, who could help kids that English is not their first language. So you get some resources there. If you're struggling with some school stuff and you want help, definitely nothing forced, right? But it's there. It'll be available. And then we'll have ping pong, maybe foosball. We're kind of playing around what all the games are.
The kids are telling me they like pool better than foosball, so I don't know.
Yeah, maybe pool. We'll see. Maybe take some votes. But you'll have in the back room. We'll have a spot where we'll have games like those types of games. We're going to have, maybe you can see behind me over here, maybe just on the edge, you'll have a bookcase. We'll have board games and card games. So you can sit down and you can play Catan, or you can play Monopoly, or you can play Risk, or any number of games that you might want to play, in Rummy or Crib. So you can play games with your friends, play games with people that are just hanging out, meet new friends while you're playing. Possibly on the weekends, we might have someone you could play the guitar or play piano, some live music that would just be a fun experience, and just to hang out and be with friends, right? Like, so that's kind of the vibe. And we're going to have people that'll be here that will be facilitating to make sure that, hey, everything's, stays calm, right? Like we don't want to, and make sure that it's a safe place for kids to hang out, and that if they need help, there'll be safe and confident adults that can help them, right? And that concept would be to give them hope, because that's really what we're about. Is we want to share the love of Christ, the hope of Christ with with young people. And so that would be the goal, is that if kids are lost and hurting, that there's somebody here that can talk to them. But it's for sure not like going to church, right?
Well, you're right. I mean, the point of this is not to create another church building, because there's a lot of kids that do go to church. They learn a lot of important things there. But I would love to create a space for maybe those kids that wouldn't step inside a church, kids that maybe wouldn't go to those places. And this is another place for them to be able to hear.
Right. Well, and to just be comfortable, right? Like that, like this is us just being open to everybody. Like there's not like there's no prerequisites. There's no, you come in, enjoy the sitting. If you want to talk to somebody about life, if you want to talk to somebody about your struggles, we'll have people around to talk to you about that. If you just want a cup of coffee and play a game, have a cup of coffee and play a game. That's really, I think, the big focus is just creating an inviting, safe place for kids to come and hang out.
Yeah, I really definitely want to put the emphasis on the fact that they are loved, right? Because I do feel in our area, and it's probably nationwide, I would guess, but the amount of kids that just feel hopeless and don't feel seen. And,
I think that's an interesting point to bring up. They don't feel seen, because I mean, we say loved, whatever, and I think sometimes that can be kind of almost like it's almost overused, where it's like, what does it mean, right? Like, but I think that seen idea is important. I think that there's a lot of kids, for friends of our kids, that I've talked to, even that they will feel that way. That you can just tell, like, spending the time to have a conversation with them and being interested in who they are and what's going on in their lives, it's like they like perk up, like, wow, right? Because I think there are a lot of people who don't feel seen, and maybe not unique to youth. And there's definitely people of all ages that need to know that they're seen and they're cared about. But I think for us, we're focused on the middle school, high school, and I think that is a huge issue. You're seen, you're heard, you're cared about, and I think that's important. That's what the gospel is really about. Like, people want to make Christianity about a lot of things, but really, when you boil it down, it's that you have a God that loves you. He sees you. He cares about you. He cares enough about you that he came and died for you. And the concepts or the things that people want to create about religion, about all of these do's and don'ts and rules, like, there is things that God expects for sure, right? Like every good parent does, but it's for your good. It's not for his purposes. It's not because he needs you to do it for him. He wants to do things because it's what's best for you. But people have created a lot of rules around religion that have made people feel like that's who God is. And that's not who God is. God's not about creating tons of rules to try to make you jump through. He fulfilled all the rules because he loves you and he wants to know you. So I don't know. We won't go too deep into theology, because I think I as I was talking there, I was like, okay, there's a lot that we could unpack on that, and that's not really. I don't want to go too deep into that. It's not the purpose here, and that's really not the purpose of 508, is to go deep into theology, because we're not, like you said, we're not creating another church building. We're not creating another space.
If kids want to have those discussions here,
oh sure,
that would be awesome. But
yeah, sure. If a kid wants to talk about theology, I would be happy to talk with them about it. But I'll be happy to talk with kids about whatever they want to talk about. And I think that's scary for a lot of people, but I think it's invigorating, because it's not like there's something that you're like, oh, can't talk about that. Like, there's some crazy things, and we'll talk about them if that's what they want to. I'm not going to push that on kids to be like, you have to talk to me about this. But what?
Well, that's the thing we notice with our teenagers too, right? Like you can try to pull information out of them and get them to talk. That's never very effective.
Yeah.
It's when you listen to them and you wait for the right moment. And it's usually 11:30 at night. And then boom, they're just like word vomiting and telling you everything and more than you want to know. But it's a lot of it is timing, opportunity, and they have to know that you're wanting to listen.
So, if somebody's interested, if they're local, as people listen to this all over the place. So, I mean, if you're not local and you're interested, still you reach out to me, send me an email at theagentinsider@gmail.com. If you're interested in volunteering or supporting, it is a nonprofit. Let us know. We'll get you that information as well. You can email me. I'll get you in touch with Becky. And that way she can help you get connected in however you want to get connected. If you have questions about why are we doing it or what did we do? If you're interested in doing it in your community, be happy to share more details about some of those pitfalls. And a lot of that's going to be individual to the state and the county that you're dealing with. But definitely share more about our heart with you on that, because I think it's an awesome thing. It's something I hope to see sprout up all over. I've heard lots of people, and I'll end with this before we go. There was a lot of people that have started things similar to this, and I think that was what was interesting. I talked to a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I know so and so had this idea in Oregon, or I know so-and-so had this idea someplace else." And there was places that had that idea here in Linden, even similar ideas, maybe not exactly the same, but very similar. And most of them don't ever open. And I know some have. I've heard of other ones that have. Most of them don't, though. Most people I've talked to are like, somebody had the idea, but then nothing ever happened. And I will tell you, if it's something that you're looking at doing, especially if you're walking into something like this without a lot of restaurant and coffee experience, it's a hard, long road. And over the last almost 5 years, there's been a lot of times where we've thought about, are we doing the right thing? And should we still be doing this?
It's like starting anything though, right? Like what was it Elon Musk said, that if you need encouragement, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to buckle.
Hard.
It is hard. I don't know if I completely agree with that, because I think that there are things that are good that sometimes you just need to know you can make it, right? And you do need that encouragement to say, don't give up. If you're that you can make it through it, other people have, and so can you. Because I think that's ultimately, I saw a meme the other day. I sent it to a friend of mine who was having a rough day. And I said, remember, you've made it through 100% of the worst days of your life.
So far,
if you're watching this. And I think that's an important reminder, is that you can do it.
Yeah.
You can get through it. There was, I said in closing now, I was like, we're going to wrap up here. And then I'm like, oh, we're not wrapping up. There was, we saw one of the guys from SEAL Team 6 talk.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. The lone survivor.
No, that was a different guy. It's the SEAL Team 6 guy. But he was talking about training, because you train, then you train for the SEALs, and then SEAL Team 6 was like next level of SEAL training, right? And he was talking about going through that training, and the best piece of advice he said he ever got was, he said, you're gonna feel like quitting, and you're gonna want to quit, because it's hard and it sucks. And he said, just remind yourself every day, you can quit tomorrow. And he said, that's what got him through SEAL Team 6 training, is the concept of like, you can quit tomorrow. And I think that's so important for us, because I think I've felt that in my life at times, where you feel discouraged and you feel frustrated and you feel like, I'm failing at everything and it's not working. And I had these big ideas of what was going to be. And then here we are 4 years later. If we rewind a year ago, the inside of this did not look like this. And we were like, man, like this isn't working. It's costing a lot of money and it feels like it's moving at a snail's pace. And I reminded myself, like, okay, I'm going to quit tomorrow. And then tomorrow you go, okay, I'm going to quit tomorrow. And sometimes that's all you need to do is just to remind yourself, you can get through today. You don't have to get through tomorrow. And if you get through today, you can accomplish great things. So anyways.
It's a good way to end.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me, Becky.
Yeah,
I
thanks
had
for
a lot
having
of
me.
fun. I enjoyed talking with you. And thank you guys for joining us online or through the podcast. If you have questions about this particular, again, remember, email me at theagentinsider@gmail.com. Or if you have questions in general about prior podcasts or topics that you'd like to see us cover, you can email me at theagentinsider@gmail.com. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.